In this video, we're going to learn about pi. What is pi? How many of you have heard of pi? And what do you know about it? What is pi? So that is the way we spell it. And the symbol we use for pi, just a Greek letter, the symbol we use for pi is this. So what is pi? Now, before we answer that, let's just do a little experiment here. Here I have a circle. And this segment here is called the diameter, if you remember. And I have a point A and B. Now, what we're going to do is going to try a little race. So we're going to have B travel back and forth like this. And A is going to go around. And they're going to be going at the same speed. I'm going to set it so they're going at the same speed. I want you to count how many times B will go back and forth while A makes one complete turn. So, are you ready? On your mark, get set, go. Right? So B makes 1, 2, now 2.5, and 3. So if you notice, B went back and forth 3 times, but we still have a little bit more to go for A. So how many diameters did A travel? Well, this here, what it traveled is 3 diameters, and then has a little bit more to go. Just a little bit more to go. So just a little bit more than 3. Let's try it again. This time, let's make the circle a little bit bigger. Let's put B back at the starting point. Let's get it as close as possible. So let's make the circle a little bit bigger and see if the same thing happens. Okay, let's get it closer. A little bit closer, and now on your marks, get set, go. So we're counting how many times B will go back and forth. So that's half, that's 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, B's almost there, and it's 3. So you see 3 diameters. A has traveled 3 diameters, and it still has a little bit more to go. So that's 3, and this part here is the 0.14. That's the value of pi. It's 3.14. So as we saw, pi is 3.14. This represents how many diameters fit around the circle. How many diameters fit around the circle? So it's 3 and a little bit. So we can do a little calculation, and we can figure out how we can actually calculate that. We can write a little equation like this. So now what I'm going to do is, so the circumference of this circle right here is 36.32 centimeters. And if I make the circle smaller, you see how the circumference changes like that. And now what I can also do is tell the computer, let's measure this diameter from here to here. So measure that distance, and that is the diameter. So now I have the diameter and I have the circumference. Now what happens when we divide? So I can make a little calculation. So I can do a little calculation here, calculate, and I can say circumference divided by diameter equals, and there is my calculation. Whenever I divide the circumference divided by its diameter, I get 3.14. Now watch what happens if I make the circle smaller. You see it's always about 3 times. It's always a little bit more than 3, and this does not change. So that is pi. If I make it smaller and smaller and smaller, it's always about 3 times. 3 diameters make a circumference. So I can make it very, very small, even in the decimals, and it'll still get 3.14. And it can be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. There, look, it's always about 3 times. My diameter is always 3 times. 3 diameters in a little bit, will make the circumference of the circle. So there we have an equation. Let's write that equation down. So let's let C equal the circumference of the circle, and D equal the diameter of the circle. So circumference is all the way around. Diameter is from one end to the other through the center. Circumference divided by diameter. So circumference divided by diameter will always be equal to pi. And that's how you find pi. the circumference of any circle divided by its diameter will always give you this number pi, 3.14, no matter how big or small that circle is. Now, because we have this equation, we can just rearrange this equation, and we can say, well, the circumference, if you multiply both sides by the diameter, then the circumference of a circle can be calculated by multiplying pi times the diameter. And there is an equation to find the circumference of a circle. If we know the diameter, just multiply by 3.14, it's about 3 times, and we'll get the circumference. We should also remember that the radius, or the diameter of a circle, is equal to 2 times the radius. So what I can do here, I can replace this d with 2r. I can take the 2r and put it where the d is, and we have another way of writing the formula for the circumference of a circle. So we can say that the circumference is pi times 2 times r. So a nicer way of writing that, we'll just write c equals 2 pi r. C equals 2 pi r. So there we go, we have two equations for the circumference of a circle. These are the ones you have to remember. So circumference is pi times d, or circumference is 2 pi times the radius. And these two are really the same, because 2 times the radius is really just diameter times pi. Okay? And now, since we have these equations, we can write them out differently. I can say diameter, if I divide both sides by pi, I can say diameter equals circumference divided by pi. So the diameter is equal to circumference divided by pi. I'm just rearranging this first equation here. And similarly, over here, I can say the same thing. I can say that the radius is, if I take the radius, if I say it's the circumference divided by pi. If I just do circumference divided by pi, that'll give me diameter. Let's divide that by 2. Diameter divided by 2 will give me radius. So here we have some more equations. So we have pi is circumference divided by diameter. And I'm just rearranging these equations. I'm just changing them around a little bit. But they're essentially the same equation. And the same thing here. Okay, so we use this fact that diameter is 2 times the radius. So I can rewrite the formula for circumference like this. Then I can rearrange it and say radius is circumference divided by 2 divided by pi. So these are all the equations we need to know for now. In the next video, we'll try examples.